Hi everyone, Perlox here for the first ever episode of The Story So Far, a D&D 5e chronicle of the sessions I've run, the ideas I've used, and the lessons I've learned so far. We started playing back in 2015, I took over DMing in 2016. I've gotten about 26 different people to play in about a 2.5 year span. About half of them, or maybe a little more, have come back for a second session. And we've got a pretty strong core group of about 6 to 8 players who come regularly. We started with the Mines of Phandelver starter set, went into entirely custom territory, and are currently playing Heat of the Dragon's Queef. I actually have all 3 parties going at the same time. We just kind of take turns playing them here and there, depending on schedules. It's quite a bit of work, and it's a lot to keep organized and straight in my mind, but it is a lot of fun. Anyway, this series will start at the very beginning and work its way forwards sequentially through all the narratives that I've deployed. So, starting with the Mines of Phandelver, back in my doughy-eyed early DM days, I had only previously played as a player just one time through the starter set, and then I decided to run D&D, which I had never done before. I intended on playing through with just minor adjustments. I figured the party could just go through the starter set and that would be a great way to kick everything off, but that quickly went off the rails, which will be revealed in future episodes. I also came with a character creation plan, which I could cover in a future video. It was basically just a real efficient way, step by step, that we could all do together to create characters, expedite the process, and get into the game. I also spent a lot of time up front thinking about the world, the NPCs, the rules, how everything was structured. I wanted to feel really confident and comfortable with the world that I was sharing with my players. So I asked all sorts of little questions about how much magic is there, how densely populated is the world, how dangerous is it to travel between cities. I wanted them, if they asked any of those types of questions, I wanted to have at least some semblance of an idea on how to answer them. Overall, everything started pretty standard. They kicked off in Neverwinter, introduced their characters and backstories, explained why they were in Neverwinter, why they were meeting up with Gundren Rockseeker. I also did a fun little thing where I had everyone roll a 1d6, and if there were any duplicates, those characters knew each other, and they had to explain why they knew each other, or how they ended up in Neverwinter together. I also asked them questions that I just previously asked myself. What is the world like? How much magic is there? What's the population like? How is it safe to travel between cities? Things like that. I wanted to get the creative juices flowing, and I also wanted to see if my vision for the world kind of met their expectations, and then I could sort of merge them together, find a nice compromise, and then deliver on something that would make everyone happy. I also use my bedroom whiteboard, which is off screen right over there. I use it for just taking notes on various things in my life and to-do lists and all that sort of crap. But for D&D sessions, I wipe it clean and I draw like a rough map on it. I do this for probably half the sessions. And it's kind of nice because I feel like it's a good representation of an imperfect human mind. It's just the major landmarks, things that you would remember if you had to think about, like, okay, what's really in this region? They're not going to know every little road and all the little cities and stuff. So this rough map is a great way to just give them an idea of where they are in the world, but there's still a lot of mystery, a lot of exploration left. Finally, I kicked off the required narrative for the starter set. They head south-southeast towards Phandalin. I suppose I should probably say spoilers at this point. They run into Gundren Rockseeker's dead horses in the path and work their way up a goblin trail to the Cragmaw Hideout. And overall, things went as expected. They infiltrated the cave, they triggered the traps, they fought a bunch of goblins, they rescued Sildar, and I kept everything pretty standard. Although someone did have to roll death saves right in the second session, which I thought was interesting. I didn't make any adjustments. It was as difficult as the starter set is. And in a way, it was kind of good because I think it indicated the lethality of the world. They realized that, oh, this character I've been building could actually die if I'm not careful. It was also interesting because during this first dungeon, the characters started to reveal their personalities and alignment, and a couple of them came out as overtly evil right off the bat. They did a lot of horrible things in the cave that were hilarious. They tried to get a couple of goblins to fight to the death. They were pretty brutal about their killing. And I sort of highlighted this by when they rescued Sildar, he sort of had PTSD from being, tortured by goblins, but he was also horrified and disturbed by the party and how awful they were to the goblins and brutal, and that worked its way into sort of future sessions where he was a little nervous to be around them. He didn't know if he should trust them or even party up with them. As they exited the cave, this is when I introduced the first major homebrew element to the starter set. I introduced a goblin that they actually drew weapons on initially, and I quickly jumped in and was like, before you do that, this is, if for any of you who played World of Warcraft, you look at this goblin and you see his portrait, and it's got that crazy golden dragon on it, and it says level ? And that was just quickly to imply that if you attack this guy, you're probably going to get completely fucked. So that sort of put the brakes on the attack, and the goblin introduced himself as Harold Bernstein III. He is a goblin spy that works for the Lord's Alliance, the King of Neverwinter. He's sort of intimately involved in the goblin tribes and also the human world, and he's sort of passing information along. And he basically walks up to the party and says, "You bastards! You killed them all, didn't you? You really fucked the pooch on this one. That's months of work down the drain." He's a spy. He was using these goblins and getting intel from them, and they killed all of them and completely ruined all of his work. There is also a long pause as he kind of assesses the party, and he says, "You're partied with a warlock, and you trust him?" And the implication here being that warlocks aren't to be trusted, that there's something wrong with them. And basically there's this regional discrimination towards warlocks and necromancers. People don't trust them, people don't like them, they're considered to be evil even if they're not. And again, I was a new DM, I just kind of wanted to throw in elements like this and just kind of see what happened. I also wanted to make the party suspicious of that player. I wanted them to think that maybe that player and myself were in cahoots, that we had talked before the session about something. I wanted them to think that maybe they shouldn't trust this character, especially since he was one of the people that was overtly evil in the group. Lastly, I introduced a small letter that they found in the cave that read, "My darling Fang Ripper, how I miss your slippery skin and the red of your eyes, like staring into pools of human blood. We shall be together again soon, I promise it. Wait for me and I promise to bring you the customary basket of human arms. I may even place a small rose in one of their frozen, outstretched hands. Then we can run away together, far from this dank cave and dirty castle. I love you, and I will fight for you. Yours truly, Harold." So the point of the letter was to introduce a possible love interest of Harold's. It also hinted at Cragmaw Castle. And eventually this sort of evolves into introducing Harold's brother, which plays a key role in the kind of custom story that I'm building. So anyway, the party continues on to Phandalin, which is where we'll pick up the next episode. Thanks for watching as always, stay tuned, and please consider subscribing.